Rev up your engines!
Now it turns out that some insurance companies are refusing to insure some Kias and Hyundais, of course, because people are stealing the vehicles because they did not put immobilizer keys in the cars back when they were making these cars. 2015 to 2019, 96% of the cars sold in America had immobilizer chips, not the Kias. Only 26% of them sold in the United States had immobilizer keys. So they're easy to steal. So now Progressive and State Farm, big insurance companies, they're refusing to write policies for these cars. And I don't blame them. It's not only that they're easy to steal, but, of course, even if you go out and hook up an immobilizer system or something, right? The kids have seen the videos on the internet. And so there's a Kia, there's a Hyundai, let's steal it. They don't know if it's been modified or not. You're going to get your windows broken and all that stuff. And the insurance companies are like, screw this, we're not going to insure these things. People are stealing, we're paying out too much money. I don't blame them either. If you bought one of these, odds are you're going to pay a lot more for your insurance because the other companies that still insure them, they'll raise the rates. They'll say, well, these cars are stolen more, so we'll charge more. That's how you pay on your rates. Full collision and everything costs more on cars with a lot of horsepower because they're faster. People tend to get in more accidents with them, so they raise the rates. They just go by mathematical formulas. And since they see all these Korean cars being stolen, guess what? They're going to raise the rates on them. So, yet another reason not to buy a Korean car. Jordan Dudgeon says, Master Scotty, help. Do early 2AZ FE 2.4 Camry engines have issues with head bolt stripping? They say they do, but personally, I've never seen one. So, from my experience, I have never seen one. I work on a heck of a lot of Toyotas, right? I've never seen one, but guys say, oh yeah, you know, the head bolt stripped on it. I guess there were some somewhere. I've never personally seen them, and I work on a whole bunch of them. But they did say that they did have problems with them stripping them. I've personally never seen it, but I mean, why would people start lying about something? I assume that some of them did have problems with the head bolt stripping. I'm not a fan of their 2.4 liter engine. They had too many problems. When it comes to Toyota, I am a dead set 1.8 liter fan. I had a 1.8 liter SR5. I had a 1.8 Celica. I still got in a driveway. I got a 1.8 liter Matrix. Those things just ran and got good gas mileage. Why would I want something bigger than a 1.8? I don't drive 180 miles an hour. You know, those things will go 80 miles an hour all day long. That's plenty fast enough. Caesar Pinedo said, if you don't like TDI, what other car can give you 45 miles a gallon more? Okay. Yesterday, a guy came here. He lives in Nashville, and he bought a brand new Toyota Corolla Hybrid. They wanted $33,000 in Nashville. So he checked around on his phone with thecars.com. He found one in Colorado for $23,000 instead of $33,000. Flew out there, went skiing, and came back with it. On the trip back, he got 51 miles a gallon on the highway going 80 miles an hour, and he got 54 miles a gallon in stop and go traffic. So there you go. And he paid $23,000 for that car. They're still making some decent cars, and it was made in Japan. Sean Fountain says, absolutely love your channel. If I buy a 12-year-old Corolla, how long do you think parts are available for it? Probably for quite some time. They've sold, I don't know, 45, 50 million Corollas. There will always be an aftermarket. The Chinese will always be building parts for those things. As long as they're out and there's a market, they'll make parts to sell so they can make a profit on it too. It's only common sense. And they made so many of them, and so many of the parts are interchangeable. And I mean, eventually cars get wrecked and they get junked, and there's still engines and transmissions that work sitting in a junkyard, and you can replace them if that stuff wears out. I wouldn't worry about parts. Corey Burke says, Scotty, what do you think of a Honda 125cc motorbike? I just bought a Super Cup. Yeah, Honda brought those back, right? They're cute little things. Now, to me, they're too small and dangerous because they don't go fast enough. If I get on two wheels, I want something that moves. I always had English racing motorcycles or screaming Suzukis. And in Rhode Island, I got a 1300 Yamaha screaming motorcycle. I want something that, if I'm in trouble, I want to be able to get fast and get out of the way. I don't want to be on some little bitty thing that somebody can't see, and I hit the throttle and I don't go fast enough and I get killed because I can't get around something, right? Plus, the brakes on racing motorcycles work really well too. They're really good brakes. Those little things are fun. You want a fun little thing for zooming around the woods, beaches? Yeah, you know, go ahead. Now me, what the heck? I've got all these Chinese companies send me electric bicycles that I'm trying out. And I got an electric bicycle from them, a C3, thing goes 30 miles an hour. It's got a Panasonic battery, and I have fun with those. So I'll never buy a little bitty moped thing because I've got these electric bicycles all over the place. But Those are fun for the size. And then Honda makes them so they'll last a long time. David Dardanelle says, Scotty, I got a 2013 Ford Fusion EcoBoost. Do you recommend changing the transmission fluid at 85,000 miles? No. I'd recommend changing it every 30 or 40,000 miles. If you have not changed it yet, you're kind of going to be in a quandary. I would look at the fluid first. If it was okay looking, I'd change it. But if it was really dark, I'd leave it alone. Because if it's really dark and you change it, put new fluid in, you might see it start to slip. Because the dark fluid's already all in there. It's used to dirty fluid with a lot of friction. You put new slippery fluid, sometimes they'll start to slip. So you'd want to check it first. Now, if you've been changing it, keep changing it every 30, 40,000 miles. Not that hard to do. And those transmissions cost a fortune and they do wear out. And the cleaner the fluid, the longer it'll last. Silent Loco says, Scotty, is a 91 Park Avenue a good car? It is old as the hills. Most of those Park Avenues that year had those 3800 V6 GM engines that were excellent engines. Excellent engines. They can run forever. But then again, it's an old car. We're talking about a 32-year-old car. That thing is old as the hills. Who knows what's going to be leaking or breaking, or the brakes stop working because the seal goes out, something that old. I mean, those engines were pretty bulletproof, but the transmission might be on its way out and they cost a lot of money to fix, so I'd be kind of leery about buying a car that old and want to drive it every day or something. Zai Hoodle says, Scotty, my '07 Lexus 133K is leaking coolant. I saw some under the car, but today I didn't see any, but the coolant level is low. Okay, we got a leak somewhere, right? Got 133,000 miles on it, and the car is 16 years old. So, get it pressure tested. Hope it's a loose clamp or a bad hose, but a lot of times it'll be the water pump starting to leak. And if it is, go to the water pump, get a flashlight. They have what's called a weep hole. And if you see the weep hole, coolant's dripping out, it means your water pump is starting to go out. So, it's time to change the water pump. That's probably what it is. Pressure test and have it checked. And if it is, change it now rather than later, because if it breaks, then, all kinds of horrible things happen. Belts can fly off and things can hit things, so fix it sooner than later if the water pump's leaking. Don Bond says, what's the oldest car in your collection? Well, I don't collect cars. I'm not Jay Leno. The oldest car I have is my 94 Celica. I don't collect cars. I actually drive them. I learned that collecting things, I guess if you got the kind of money Jay's got, tens of millions of dollars to throw around, go ahead if it's your hobby. But to me, cars are transportation. Motorcycles is more my hobby, but even then, I don't collect them. I've owned numerous types of motorcycles, and I ended up selling them all and getting another one. I find that a lot of things, the past looks cool. Get in a 57 Chevy. The brakes stink. The transmission stinks. It's a V8 engine, but the new ones have tons more horsepower. They're more fun to drive. They're safer, The past looks good in retrospect, but if you bring the past to the present, you're like, why did I buy that thing, Motorcycles. When I was a kid, it was something. I had the fastest production motorcycle in the world. It was a BSA Lightning, right? It had like 58 horsepower. Now they got them almost 300 horsepower. So times change, And I don't collect them. I just like driving them. I can get another one when they wear out. Triggity 1080 says, Scotty, what's more reliable Chevy truck? An '03 with a 5.3 or a 95 with a 5.7? Well, the 95, if it was taken care of. They were building them much more solid. Everything has gone cheaper. GM engines get noises, burn oil more than they used to. And they started to go bad around '02, '03 is when they started making them a lot crappier than they did back in 95. But of course, 95 is 95. It's going to be a lot of wear, but it's a better built design than the modern ones. The bead counters hadn't taken over yet. Kids Soze says, Scotty, what happens when you turn your traction off when you're driving? Okay, the traction control tries to keep you from slipping. If you accelerate too hard, it breaks the car so it doesn't slip. You turn it off. You're going back to when I was a kid and you had to know how to drive cars. You had to know if you're going real hard and start slipping, how to counter steer, how to brake if there's a problem. You had to know how to steer into a slide instead of steering against it and going. It was harder to drive. There's no argument. If you turn it off, you're turning those systems up. But realize that most cars these days, as you turn it off, start driving, it turns itself back on when you get to a certain speed for safety. So most of them, they don't permanently turn off. They just turn it off at a lower speed, and then they automatically come on later on because they don't want people wrecking the cars and then suing the company. Well, Ford's quality or lack of quality, they just recalled another 462,000 vehicles because the rear view cameras may not work. It's been linked to 17 accidents. Now, these are 2020 to 23 Ford Explorers and Lincoln Corsairs and Aviators, big SUVs, right? They can't even make the cameras right. The screens go blank. You know, and they're talking about we're going to make all electric cars and we're all going to be motoring our electric cars right. These guys can't even make electric cameras work right on their vehicles. Do you want an entire car that's based on electricity from these guys? I certainly wouldn't want one. And as usual, they say, oh, it's a software problem. They're going to update the software module. They always say the same crap. Oh, it's a software problem. We'll just reprogram it. They don't want to have to replace anything, right? It would cost them too much money. And from my experience, it really doesn't fix the underlying problem. There's usually something physical that's wrong, like maybe the modules themselves. And they're reprogramming, probably try to bypass a bad part, but who's to say how long that'll last? These vehicles are either brand new or a couple of years old, and they're breaking down already. What's going to happen when they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old? That's the problem with all this stupid electronic technology. As the vehicle's age, that crap is going to break, and then you're either going to live without it or you're going to spend a fortune fixing it, because it'll be well out of warranty then. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.